if a living organism is also ultimately made of atoms, and all non-living things are also made of atoms, like this, like these books, everything else, then what exactly makes a living being living? What exactly is life then? Yes, everything is made of atoms. Yeah, we are made of atoms. The metal here is made of atoms. The wood, the books, which is all that. This thing here is everything is atoms. My clothes, all atoms. Yeah. So the question you're asking is what exactly differentiates life, living organisms from non-living material, non-living substances. So there are several characteristics that are common to all living organisms. Firstly, they're made of cells. You take a microscope and you take, let's say, blood sample or whatever. You put it in a slide, you mount it in a microscope, put the light on, and you go deep into it. You will see cells, red blood cells, white blood cells, other cells, cells. Human tissue is made of cells. There are fat cells, there are muscle cells, and all kinds of other cells, right? Skin cells, and there are specialized cells, and so on. So all living organisms are made of cells. Those cells obviously are made up of proteins and other things, and deep inside you have atoms. Yeah. So atoms are at the foundation of everything in the 4% universe that we see. Yeah. uh, these atoms, they give rise to molecules. These molecules give rise to various chemical substances. The chemical substances are what make up life. The carbon chemistry that we are carbon creatures, or carbon based life forms. So all living beings are made up of cells. You will not find any living being that doesn't have a cell. Yeah. So cells are the basic unit of life. Now all living beings have either DNA or RNA. Take viruses. You have RNA viruses, you have DNA viruses. The most infamous RNA virus of these days is, you know what. So all living beings are made of cells. All living beings have DNA or RNA. Living beings can grow and develop. They can reproduce and pass on their genetic information to their offspring. Non-living beings, non-living materials can't do this. Yeah. And living beings can regulate their internal environment. We human beings all have a certain temperature, 98 point whatever degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, you go above that, it's a fever and then things are not well. So in your normal healthy state, you are able to regulate your internal temperature and all the internal subsystems, systems and subsystems that make up your body. And this is something that applies to all living beings. They can regulate their internal environment, and they respond to external stimuli. And living beings evolve. Like I said, they can pass on their genetic information to their offspring, and this happens over generations, generation after generation. And eventually there is evolution. Living beings evolve, and there is natural selection, survival of the fittest in their environment, right? So that's the deal. These are some of the characteristics of living beings. Now when I spoke about viruses. Viruses are curious creatures. They are kind of on the boundary between living and non-living, living and dead. Yeah. So they don't regulate their internal environment. They can't do that. And viruses don't even respond to stimuli. Mostly they don't respond to stimuli. Yeah. But they do have DNA or RNA. They do have a cell membrane, a cell structure. They do reproduce and pass on genetic information to their offspring, and they do evolve. They do mutate and evolve. We know they evolve enough. So yeah, viruses they're like crystals in a sense. They of course have proteins and all that. Yep. And they have DNA or RNA. So viruses are on the dividing boundary kind of between living and non-living. But the fact that they have DNA or RNA, in my opinion, makes them living beings. Yeah. So these are the characteristics of living organisms. We are living organisms. Our dog, our cat, our bird, pets, whatever, uh, and whatever else we see, trees, all living organisms, they all share these characteristics. Even plants respond to external stimuli. Maybe not in the sense that we do, but they do. You see, if you see what do they call it? What do they call it? That video in which you speed time up. I forgot the term. You see those videos in which the time is speeded up, and you see the behavior of a plant in, let's say, 60 seconds. What it does in 3 days, then you will see that it responds to stimuli. You put a light on, it's going to turn in the direction to get more light, and so that it can enhance the photosynthesis. In the nighttime, the leaves, they droop down and they close, and that sort of thing. If you see a time lapse of a forest from above, you will see that the trees, they shift their positions multiple times in a day, and they all try to stay away from their neighbors and keep some space in between. So even plants respond to their external environments and all that. So that's essentially the difference between living and non-living, even though everything is made up of atoms.